Most fans see Star City as simply another series set in the world of For All Mankind. But that couldn't be further from the truth. While it may look like a traditional spin-off on the surface, it's actually the missing half of the story that fans have been waiting years to see. Since For All Mankind first premiered, the Soviet Union has always been portrayed as a mysterious rival. We witnessed history through NASA's eyes, watching American astronauts react to Soviet victories without ever truly understanding what was happening behind the Iron Curtain. Every Soviet success felt distant, almost mythical, because the people responsible remained hidden in the shadows. Star City changes all of that. Instead of asking how NASA responded to the Soviet Union, it asks an even more fascinating question. What was happening inside the Soviet space program while America was desperately trying to catch up? Once you understand those hidden connections, you'll realize these two shows were always telling the same story from opposite sides, and every major event in For All Mankind becomes even more meaningful. The biggest connection is also the simplest one. Star City is not a reboot, an alternate version, or a completely separate timeline. It exists in the exact same alternate history universe established by For All Mankind. The creators, Matt Wolpert and Ben Nedivy, have confirmed that the series expands the existing timeline instead of replacing it. That means every Soviet victory, every American setback, and every technological breakthrough still happened exactly as fans remember. The only difference is perspective. Instead of standing inside mission control at NASA, viewers are transported into the heart of the Soviet Union, where every decision carries enormous political and personal consequences. Suddenly, familiar events are transformed because we're finally seeing the people who made them possible. That connection becomes even stronger because both shows begin with the same defining historical moment. The entire timeline of For All Mankind changes when the Soviet Union becomes the first nation to land a human on the moon. In the original series, that achievement is presented as an American disaster, forcing NASA to rethink everything it believed about the space race. It sparks an era of relentless competition that pushes humanity further into space than ever before. But in Star City, that same moment has an entirely different emotional meaning. Instead of watching disappointed Americans, we witness the years of sacrifice, impossible engineering, political pressure, and fear that made that historic landing possible. It's no longer just a shocking headline. It's the culmination of countless lives dedicated to achieving what many believed was impossible. Perhaps the most fascinating change is how Star City removes the mystery surrounding the Soviet Union. Throughout For All Mankind, Soviet achievements are usually seen through CIA reports, intelligence briefings, political speeches, and American speculation. The Soviets almost feel like ghosts, always one step ahead but rarely understood. That mystery was intentional because the original series focused on NASA's perspective. Star City completely reverses that idea. Now viewers spend time with the cosmonauts risking their lives, the engineers solving impossible problems, the intelligence officers protecting state secrets, and the families struggling to survive inside an authoritarian system. Instead of hearing rumors about Soviet missions, audiences finally witness how those missions were planned, built, and carried out from the inside. One of the most important hidden links involves the mysterious figure known only as the chief designer. Long before Star City was announced, fans of For All Mankind occasionally heard references to the brilliant engineer responsible for keeping the Soviet space program ahead of NASA. He remained more of a legend than a character, someone whose influence shaped history without ever appearing on screen. Star City finally changes that by placing the chief designer at the center of the narrative. Although the series presents him through its alternate history lens, he is clearly inspired by the real-life Soviet rocket engineer Sergei Korolev. In actual history, Korolev died in 1966, but in the world of For All Mankind, his survival dramatically changes the balance of the space race. His continued leadership allows Soviet technology to advance faster, explaining why NASA constantly struggles to keep pace throughout the original series. Another major connection lies in how both shows portray the dangers of space exploration. For All Mankind never pretended that NASA's missions were safe. Astronauts regularly faced deadly accidents, technical failures, and impossible decisions. Yet Star City suggests that the Soviet program operates under even greater pressure. Engineers rush launches to satisfy political leaders. Cosmonauts climb into spacecraft that may not be fully ready. Scientists constantly fear making mistakes because failure doesn't just threaten a mission. It can destroy careers or even lives. The series reveals an environment where every success is celebrated, but every failure carries devastating consequences. That helps explain why Soviet missions often appeared so secretive and dangerous in For All Mankind. The risks weren't simply technological. They were deeply political. The presence of the KGB creates another enormous difference between the two series. While NASA certainly faced government oversight, American astronauts and engineers generally worked in an environment that encouraged open discussion and scientific debate. Star City presents a completely different reality. Apartments are bugged, conversations are monitored. Intelligence officers listen to private discussions, searching for disloyalty or hidden secrets. Scientists aren't only worried about rockets exploding, they're worried about saying the wrong words in their own homes. This atmosphere of constant surveillance gives entirely new meaning to the cold, calculating Soviet officials seen throughout For All Mankind. They aren't simply villains. They're products of a system built on fear, secrecy, and absolute loyalty to the state. One of the most exciting links for longtime fans is the appearance of younger versions of familiar characters. The series introduces Sergei Nikulov decades before audiences meet the older Sergei in For All Mankind. His earlier years reveal how his experiences inside Star City shaped the brilliant engineer viewers eventually came to know. In the original series, Sergei became one of the franchise's most sympathetic characters because he placed scientific progress above politics, secretly working with NASA flight director Margot Madison to ensure the success of the Apollo-Soyuz docking mission. His tragic fate later became one of the series' most emotional storylines. Seeing where his journey begins gives fans a much deeper appreciation of the choices he eventually makes and the enormous personal cost of those decisions. Another familiar face is Irina Morozova. In For All Mankind, she is known as a ruthless and calculating Soviet official whose actions dramatically influence the lives of several major characters. Star City introduces a much younger Irina, showing that she wasn't always the cold strategist audiences remember. Instead, viewers watch her transformation as she becomes increasingly shaped by the brutal realities of Soviet intelligence. This evolution adds complexity to a character who previously appeared almost entirely defined by power and ambition. The technological race itself is another hidden connection that becomes clearer once both series are viewed together. Every Soviet breakthrough shown in Star City explains why NASA responds with increasingly ambitious projects in For All Mankind. The race isn't simply about national pride. Every achievement by one side forces the other to innovate even faster. A Soviet lunar victory pushes NASA toward larger lunar bases. New Soviet spacecraft inspire more advanced American technology. The entire alternate history timeline functions like an endless chain reaction in which each success creates an even greater challenge for the opposing side. Neither program develops in isolation. They evolve because they're constantly responding to one another. Beyond rockets and politics, both series ultimately explore the same fundamental idea: ambition. At first glance, they appear to tell different stories. One follows American astronauts chasing exploration, while the other focuses on Soviet cosmonauts working within an authoritarian system. Yet, both are driven by the same human desire to achieve greatness, leave a legacy, and push beyond impossible limits. The governments may be different, the ideologies may clash, and the methods may vary dramatically. But the dreams of the people inside these programs remain surprisingly similar. Engineers want to build something extraordinary. Pilots want to explore the unknown. Families hope their sacrifices will mean something. Those shared motivations remind viewers that even during the Cold War, the people on both sides were far more alike than their governments often admitted. Even the title Star City carries deeper meaning than many fans realize. Rather than inventing a fictional location, the series draws inspiration from the real Soviet cosmonaut training center known as Star City, where generations of astronauts prepared for spaceflight. In the same way that NASA's Johnson Space Center became the emotional heart of For All Mankind, Star City becomes the symbolic center of the Soviet story. It represents not only scientific achievement, but also sacrifice, secrecy, and the enormous burden carried by those tasked with keeping their nation ahead in humanity's greatest competition. Ultimately, Star City isn't trying to replace For All Mankind. Instead, it completes it. Every mysterious Soviet victory, every technological leap, and every political decision that once seemed distant now gains emotional depth because viewers finally understand the people behind those headlines. By revealing the hidden sacrifices of cosmonauts, engineers, intelligence officers, and ordinary families living under extraordinary pressure, the series transforms familiar moments into something entirely new. Instead of presenting two separate stories, For All Mankind and Star City fit together like two halves of the same history. One shows how America reacted to an impossible challenge, while the other reveals the incredible cost of creating that challenge in the first place. And that's what makes Star City far more than a spin-off. It's the missing perspective that makes the entire universe richer, deeper, and far more human than ever before. Before you go, what's your favorite hidden connection between Star City and For All Mankind? And do you think seeing the Soviet perspective will completely change the way fans watch the original series? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next deep dive into the world of For All Mankind and beyond.